Welcome to Black Men Speak. It's a podcast that highlights ordinary Black men doing extraordinary things. I'm your host, Keith Dent, and it's great to be here. I know it's been a couple of weeks since I've seen all of you, but it's really great to be here. And it's even extra special because for anyone that knows me well, they know that teeth are kind of my thing. And I wouldn't say smiling is my moneymaker, but someone I have heard that before. So I do like to smile. And it's just one of the things that, you like. Everyone has a thing. Smiling and teeth are kind of a thing. So there you go. And so at one time in my life, I wasn't allowed to smile. So probably I would say probably a couple of years ago or a year and a half or so, when I had to renew my license, uh, you just say, okay, for the picture, and you just automatically, or at least I automatically smile. And they say, oh, sorry, you can't smile. You have to give a straight face. And I don't know if it's New Jersey thing, New York, but yeah, I guess they just want they don't want to have an inflection in your face, just in case you get pulled over and of course you're not going to smile when that happens. So like, okay, this is the guy. But the thing is that you can only really think about as a Black man, or a person of color, that okay, they want you to have a profile picture. And why is that? Is everybody doing that? You never know, because when you're at the DMV, you're focused on your own photo. You're not really focused on somebody else's. And so I felt a kind of a weird way about it. But my guest today actually had an opposite reaction. When he went to go take his DMV photo, um, he didn't automatically smile, and it took the photographer on the other end to say, "Hey, I think you need to smile for your photo." And he had a certain way about, what do you mean I have to smile? Maybe I don't want to smile right now. I've probably been in line about 2 hours, and so I'm not. This is the end. I'm tired. I'm probably hungry. Don't feel like smiling. And the photographer say, "Hey, you want to represent your best self when you take this photo." And so it got him wondering, and I'm sure he thought about it, and then it got him wondering, are Black men hiding behind their expressions of joy? And are they actually expressing pain, death and stereotypes, because constantly being ridiculed? And so he took it a lot further, and he decided to create a book out of basically Black men smiling. And so his name is Damon Mosley. He's the author of Smile for We. It's a photography book, basically a photography book of 32 men smiling. And I like, because they are in essence revealing the joy of not of what's not normally seen in Black men. So Damon Mosley is from Columbus, or Columbus-based writer, producer, and photographer. He began his writing career while studying at Columbia University. And in 2008, he created a self-published book called I've Got to Have Those Shoes. And it was inspired by a program or organization called Samaritan's Feet. So I'm going to bring him in, and we're going to talk about that, and among other things. Damon, hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, Keith. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, look, you have a great smile too, so I'm sure you were it shouldn't have been as perplexed, featuring the pearly whites in your DMV photo. But yeah, I mean, kind of, and so basically, were you take me back to that day? Were you perplexed by the fact that, and it was a Black woman that asked you to
Yeah.
smile in the photo?
I was. Like you said, no one, that's not the most joyful place, being in the DMV. I mean, like usually it's the opposite of joy. So I was not in the mood to smile. It didn't cross my mind to smile for that particular picture. But when she said it, at first I was like, okay, like, you're joking, that you're not serious. But then she leaned in. She said, no, if you ever get pulled over, this is how you want them to see you.
Mm.
And she didn't elaborate, but the implication to me was clear, was that, hey, you guys are considered scary. You guys, meaning we black men, you're scary, you're threatening, and you know how that can turn out for you on the side of the road. So it would be in your best interest to portray yourself non-threatening, non-scary, and to let your humanity show, to give you a shot in terms of it not turning into something, a regular ticket turning into something violent or deadly.
And that's quite interesting. So, have you ever seen yourself as threatening or scary?
No, I haven't. And it's funny because black men in America nowadays, I feel like we have three options. We can either be, you're either scary and you're a threat to people, or you're some kind of, unicorn, like a Barack Obama super achiever, or you're invisible. If you're not one of those
Mm.
two things, you're nothing. So I've never felt scary or threatening. And, it almost is, it's an insult, right? If someone even calls you safe. So to go on the other end of the spectrum, because it's like safe as, as opposed to what? Like, what do you mean by that? So we kind of exist in like this weird nether region between not being allowed to be human and then also afraid to let our humanity show. So it's kind of a weird space to be in. And I just wanted to speak to that. And I wanted to almost soothe that part of our pain that we have to bear.
Okay. And so I know the DMV photo kind of inspired you to write to do the book.
Yeah.
And how long did it actually take you to from that time to actually get out there and get started on and actually taking the photos and the things for the book?
Well, the DMV story that took place years ago. It's just something that I've always kind of held on to. Every time I've had to get my license renewed, um, that's just been a voice in my head. The book was initially, it was inspired by the police brutality problems that we've witnessed around the country in the past several years. I just felt really, you feel helpless when you keep seeing these images, rotating in your mind every day. Or, I'm a news junkie, so I'm always watching current events. It
Mm.
seems like every day you see something similar of a black man being brutalized by the police. So that's kind of like what I was initially responding to. But then when I picked up my camera and began to take these pictures, the reluctance of black men to smile, I said, wait a minute now, there's something a lot bigger at play here. We're not on the side of the road. These aren't any flashing lights behind us. This is people that I know, some of them for decades, and they're uncomfortable in a private setting, just smiling for me on camera. Like this is something way bigger. This project needs to serve. And then that's when, it just became almost a mission to humanize our to humanize black men.
So, I love that's very intriguing. So I want to get into that. So when you were, because I know you were a photographer, by you do that. You're by trade, correct?
Not
Or
by trade. I'm a hobbyist. I don't want, don't
oh,
want to,
okay,
yeah, I don't want to disrespect the people who do this for a living and people who are super skilled. I'm more, my stock in trade is a writer. I consider photography to be kind of just an extension of my Swiss Army skill set, but my base skill and where I hang my hat is as a writer. And but honestly, people don't read a lot anymore. We become an increasingly visual society.
okay,
So if you're not, making, people would rather press play than read several
yeah,
pages. So so I just wanted to find something that I could reach out and touch people, very viscerally and quickly. I want this to be a very
right.
simple concept to digest, and I'm glad I went this route.
And I guess I meant to say there will be times where a lot of time people will see you. You'll have a camera in your hand. not
Oh
necessarily
yeah, yeah. I always,
professional, but you'll be walking around and they will see you actually taking photos.
absolutely. I
Okay.
mean, it's another form of expression. Whether it be most smartphones nowadays even have great cameras on them, but I like to tool around in camera shops and mess with some of the equipment and accessories. Kind of geek out on that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm always taking pictures, just even whether I publish them or not. It's just a fun, relaxing thing to do.
Okay. So and the reason why I asked the question, so prior to you actually taking the pictures for the book, when you would ask black men to smile, they would be reluctant to smile.
Absolutely, 100%. Like no one ever wanted to smile. These are guys that I've known. We laugh and joke all the time, but as soon as the camera comes out, they're like, no, no. It's almost like this persona slips over you, and in private moments when our guards are down and we feel safe, we can be our full selves. But it's almost like if something's going to be recorded or um, possibly shown to the world, we have to slip on this persona. And that's kind of sad to me because that's what's expected of us, even though it's not necessarily based in reality.
I find that fascinating because I mean I think if anyone knew me, and I know this is not about me, but you know people always know that I smile for the camera. It's almost a running joke, that
Right.
that's the den in him or whatever. That's what my wife will usually say, and or always being camera ready. And so the fact that so I've never really known that as being the frown. If I was frowning, that's either something was wrong or and it was clear people would know that. So the fact that collectively most men aren't smiling. What does that really say about us collectively as men?
Um, it says that we've internalized these images that we see in mass media. If you, whether it be the internet, print media, TV shows and movies, you rarely see positive images of black men. I don't want to call out any of the shows and movies by name, but any number of which that are on the air right now that are really popular, um, they don't show us in a very positive light. We're either, again, athletes, drug dealers, or criminals of some sort, or rappers. And nothing against athletes and rappers because I love sports and music, but it's a very limited lens through which to view us, I feel. I think that we are capable of doing far more than those three things. And if you look around you, like you'll see evidence of that. Look in your phone. Like how many rappers do you know? How many drug dealers do you know? How many, you know what I mean? How many athletes do you know? Most of us are worrying about gas prices and mortgages just like everybody else in a cubicle next to us. So uh,
Mhm.
I just want to amplify our full humanity. Like that's really my mission.
Right, right. And so and I know being from Columbus, that's primarily college town. So
You got it.
so would you say for black men that's kind of the image that is out there?
Yeah. So that's a good question. I hope you have your guest room ready because I may sit me out of town for this one. No, Columbus is a college town. Ohio State is down the street. Ohio State football is a religion here, and so that means that for generations, both black and white people, the most common image they see of black men is on Saturdays afternoons. Black men scoring touchdowns. You know, um, and that trickles over into society at large. You know what I mean? So when you're in the workforce, people will celebrate your physical abilities and almost really ignore any other aspect of your being. You know what I mean? Like you could, if you go to Ohio State and you play football there, and I mean on the scout team, and you never saw the field in your whole time there, you would get more love and respect than if you uh, executed an IPO, and that's sad.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, I know Ohio State is all about Ohio State. Uh, I was a, I mean, when I watched college football, I was a Buckeye fan. So I
No,
a little
it's a
familiar
great
with
program, and
yeah.
and and I have to say, as a disclaimer, don't, no disrespect to those young men. Some of them have gone on to further their education through sports, and even those who have gone pro, they can take care of their families for generations. I mean, so that's a good thing. It's just that that's not the majority of us, and I don't like that we get penciled uh, into such a narrow definition of who we are. That's it.
So, so you would say it was more the invisible side, because if you didn't play for Ohio State football, it's almost as if you didn't exist.
Yeah, and just athletics, that carries over into just the focus on black men's, um, like how we gain respect in the world. Like, what can we do to gain respect in the world? You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like our achievements in any of our abilities, they just get ignored. I'll give you an example. Like, say, I used to work in corporate, and I had a book on my desk. It's an autobiography of a famous black person. And I had a white guy come up to me, and he wasn't like a racist. He was someone I was cool with. And he was just more surprised than being malicious. But he said, well, what are you reading that for? And it's almost like he couldn't fathom that I would have an interest in myself, in my culture, and B, that I would be engaging in an intellectual pursuit. If I'm not going to go watch the game on Saturday or tailgating or eating some wings, it's almost like he couldn't find a space for me to exist in. So
Wow.
again, those things are very telling when you're in such a football centric town. There is a real life, consequence to that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I see that. That is it's very fascinating. Just to, because I don't touch upon sports so much in the show,
Yeah.
because like it, and kind of like just for that, because that's what we're not saying we're known for, but yes, sports and entertainment, those are easy guests to find, but it's harder, or I work to try to find guests that are actually doing something different, but also making a difference. And
Sure.
so, and that's the reason why you're here today. So let's go back to the book.
Sure.
Um, and you talked about individuals that are having a chat, us as black men having a challenge smiling. So, was there, from all the individuals that were in the book, was there someone that just really had a difficult time smiling, and you had to really convince them that, or convince them to actually participate?
Yeah, there's one guy that comes to mind in particular. I mean, honestly, out of the 32 guys, only a handful, and by handful I mean like maybe 5 or 6, were just naturals. Just kind of, it was easy, the
Okay.
super easy. Everyone else, the vast majority, it was like pulling teeth. Like,
Wow.
seriously, it was a chore, and I didn't anticipate that. So the one gentleman, he had a gap in his teeth. So he
Okay.
was
Yeah, I
very
remember that picture.
self-conscious
Yes.
about that, like super self-conscious. And I mean, he was physically shaking. That
Mm.
threw me. That threw me for a loop. I didn't, I expected some pushback, and I had to do some coaxing. But this brother was shaking. Like, I knew he was, and I was like, I didn't want him to be uncomfortable. I didn't want this to be something, painful for him. So what I ended up doing was I got some TikTok videos, and I just kept shooting until he laughed. Like, that's what I had to. That's what it took to pull him out of that
That's what it
self
took.
consciousness. Yeah. So his picture is I just had to just kept shooting until he laughed.
Well, yeah, and that was just, and TikTok videos don't last long but for that moment.
Exactly. So I'm
That
I'm just
moment.
shooting. I'm just like nonstop, just trying to catch whatever I can. And usually, again, laughter. Some people just, even, how we go through that awkward phase in our childhood. Everyone has these school pictures where you don't really know how to smile, not on command. So when someone says, say cheese, you always get like these, she's like second to fifth grade, get these really weird expressions with children because they're being told to smile on command, and they haven't quite mastered that yet. So laughter is really the most natural um, expression of joy because it's spontaneous and you can't contain it.
Okay.
So a lot of the guys, the other guys who wouldn't smile, I kind of bribed them. I can admit to that. I wasn't. I may have told some stories about ex-girlfriends.
Okay.
It's always a good source of
Yeah, right.
a good source of humor. Uh, So yeah, I would just joke with them and try to get them out of their come out of their shell a little bit, and because I wanted these to be natural expressions. That's why I shot them on location and not in the studio. I
Okay.
wanted to catch them where they were, and I think it worked out pretty good.
Yes, I think it did as well. But one of the other things that I thought was quite interesting is that of course, the when I looked at the book, immediately I thought about the Humans of New York book, where the guy took pictures, but he
Yeah,
had stories behind it. But you didn't feature as many. You didn't feature all 32 individuals. Was that by design? And if so, why was that?
it was. There were some practical reasons for that, and then there were some aesthetic reasons for that. Aesthetically, I didn't want the viewer to get bored just with the repetitive format of image, caption. So I wanted to break it
Mm,
up and let the images breathe a little bit. I wanted people to thumb through at least a couple of pages at a time where there wasn't anything to read. They can just engage with the faces and the smiles on the pages. But from a practical standpoint, right now there's a global paper shortage. So it's like gas prices, paper prices, they fluctuate on any given day. So
mm,
for me to keep my page count down to where, it would be practical for me, as far as my cost, and then whatever cost I would have to forward on to my customers, there was like a sweet spot of a page count. So if I were to add captions to every picture, uh, even outside of the design challenges, it would have doubled my page count. And I think
mm.
that would have pushed my margins a little higher than I think people would have been willing to pay for. As of right now, I had no one's complained about the price. Like it hasn't even come up. But I think if I had to bump it up $5 or so, 5, 10, I think I would have run into some problems.
Okay. Well, as a fellow entrepreneur, hey, you wanna make money on the deal, and well, you're trying to get this out to the world, and so
Sure. It was
you know,
more important to me, honestly. And yes, you're right. I do want to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. But I also wanted it to be in as many hands as possible. This is like a portable coffee table book, right? So I
right.
wanted people to be able to have it with them. And it's just more important to me that people have it because it's that important to me that we start this new conversation of Black men being human.
Okay, and so I guess you've had those conversations, black men being human,
Yes.
and how have those conversations gone?
You know, it's funny because I did this to initiate those types of conversations. But then sometimes you find yourself getting frustrated that you have to have these conversations in 2022. It's like, oh goodness. Like, I give an example. Um, and I don't want to call this person out because I'm very happy if they reached out. But I had a neighbor that wanted to talk to me about their struggles to see Black men in a positive light. I'm thinking to myself, well, you've lived next to me for almost 8 years. Like, I shovel your sidewalk. You know
Mm,
what kind of person I am. So I'm thinking, where did this struggle come from? You know what I mean? Most times people don't see the humanity in people that they don't have any access to or any proximity
mhm,
to. So, you know, I do enjoy those conversations. A lot of things, again, being in Columbus, a lot of people from Columbus have relocated from smaller towns in Ohio, like Canton, Lima, Dayton. The
mhm,
big cities are finger quote big cities are Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland. But there's a lot of people in Columbus who've come from smaller towns, and they have not had any exposure to Black people until they were like 19, 20 years old. So that's a lot of, that's almost 2 decades of just propaganda that you have to cut through before you can reach any type of understanding. So, but I'm happy to have those. Like I said, it gets a little frustrating at times, but you have to kind of, I think if you want people to see your humanity, you have to recognize theirs as well, and maybe even understand kind of like why they may have these blind spots.
so in essence, his struggle became was because of lack of access to other races, or because clearly, he's had interaction with you, but that was
Right.
where his struggle came from.
Well, that's where I think that's where it started. And what I was trying to get him to see was, like you said, there wasn't a lack of access because this person has had access to me. But for some reason, this is the part that really, I wish I knew like where this came from. But for some reason, when Black men do well, for some reason, the group doesn't get credit for that, right? Like now, if it's a negative thing, we all,
Oh, okay.
we get that, right? Like if somebody robbed a bank or shot somebody, then of course we will all have to carry that stigma. But if a Black guy helps an old lady across the street, or you know, saves a kitten from a tree, right? Whatever, any act of kindness, for some reason, that gets put over in the individual pile,
Oh, right.
but it doesn't
Basically,
necessarily.
you're not one of them.
Right. You almost get cherry picked. It's just a weird cognitive dissonance that takes place that's really frustrating because, again, I gave a virtual talk to a pretty large corporation. And I told the workers, I said, okay, listen, look at look at the Black men in the cubicles next to you, in the elevator that you pass every day, in the break room, in the lobby. What's so like you are around more of those than you are any character from The Wire. So I don't know why, you know what I mean? I mean, there's a large, I do know, one of the reasons why, and that's because this is a larger conversation on race that I won't get too detailed into, but it kind of it has some insight into like why we have this problem. But in Black America, the street part of our culture has become the de facto authentic Black experience. And that's because of these images, right? These TV shows, these movies, the songs, and people, people around the world falling in love with hip hop. But the street element of Black America becomes the authentic one. So everyone's trying to they grab onto that as opposed to the everyday things that they see. It's like they skip right over it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And want to be, whether it be entertained or fascinated by, curious, who knows what word to use to best describe it. But it's almost like they want to step over that. Like the person that lives right next door, that goes to the same school and churches that they do, for somehow, that's not Black. But The
Mm-hmm.
Wire is Black.
Right. Because also The Wire also substantiates the images that they'll see when the news come on. So it's like,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
the news, how it's, led is all, and it's just all negative no matter what.
Yeah.
It's, but when the images, and it also is funny, so it goes back to the images, when there is a crime and when Black men are seen, they are seen not smiling.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, they're angry. Um, Not only they're committing crime, but they're also angry just in general. So when it's not like they're smiling as they are committing the crimes. So when it transfers into the good Samaritan things that we do, or just being neighborly,
Right.
that's like, okay, that's not normal. That's not normal.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
It's
so
just like you said. I was always known for smiling. Like growing up, I've always smiled. Like it's never. It's just part of who I am. It's not even something I can control or would even want to control. But and that runs so counter to what the narrative is about us. Like you said, for all the negative images and the things that people see, it's almost like you get seen as, again, an individual, not a Black man, but almost Black plus tax. You know what I mean? Like you get there's a little more that people put on your shoulders. I'm like, no, no, no. Like I am a regular Black person, regular Black man. There's millions of Black men just like me who serve the community, who are not a threat to you in any way. And actually, we're actually productive. Like Black men are doing better now than ever before by every measurable statistic.
right,
So if there was a time for this image to change, it would be now.
right.
I don't know. So these talking points that people keep repeating that are untrue, like it's never been more untrue than now. So I think that we, as black men, what we need to do now is kind of be our own spokespeople and be our own PR department.
Right,
We
right.
need to really celebrate each other and really lift each other up and just keep repeating and just pounding those old narratives down. And so what's
Well,
left is the new one.
and it's funny that you said that. We also have to see ourselves as human.
Yes.
Um, and we're vulnerable and we have flaws, because I do think we don't help ourselves either at times, because we want to be the machismo guy, or
Yeah.
we also want to um, degrade our black women too. So then that doesn't it doesn't we don't help ourselves, and we have to start to, I think, also have to look in the mirror and say, look, be joyful and happy just for who you are. I mean, we all make mistakes. We're not perfect. We're not expected to be perfect. If you believe in Jesus and God, that there, that's where the perfection comes, or your higher power.
Right.
It's not about and you don't. We can, whatever position that we're in, enjoy that, and just strive to be the best person that you can be. And I think that would change if we could do that. And I think we collectively struggle with that.
We definitely do. And I think the reason why we struggle so much is because, you know, I'm not in the struggle Olympics, but there has been an ongoing campaign to associate black men with negativity and violence. Like, there's a through line. You can trace it back. We can go from the original 1914 film, A Birth of a Nation. We can go on up to 88, the Willie Horton ad campaign, political commercials during the Bush campaign, up through the George Floyd. Like, we can trace this all the way down. So when we have these conversations, I really think it's important that we do so within a historical context, in that people don't have these images of us by mistake, right? Like, even the cops
Right.
TV shows, the reality shows, like, these things are out there. So it's very easy, if that's all you see, it's very easy to internalize that, because where would you get the counter view? If you don't have positive black men in your life, whether it be your fathers, your uncles, coaches, mentors, what have you, if you don't, if every time you turn on your TV or your smartphone or your radio, if all you keep seeing and hearing is that this is what's expected of us, it's just very hard not to get drawn in by that. It's very hard. So that's why, I'm really trying to combat the imagery. I think leads to the performance.
Well, I guess we just have to. You have to just make this a viral campaign and send it out to everybody,
I would love that.
and start to change some of those images. But so we talked about this, and I think it's great. And you are a very positive guy. I can tell by your energy. But did you actually have a point where, just in your own life, where you felt like the images that are being portrayed?
That's a great question, Keith. I could give you the easy. I could dodge that one and say no, of course not. Me, no. But yeah, I can say that I did. It was after college. I grew up in the inner city, so um, I knew all too well, some of the things that people expect of black men and think of black men. Yeah, I did see that. I saw a lot of it, both in my family and in just my neighborhood. Um, I got a scholarship to a boarding school in Virginia, and then from there, I got a scholarship to an Ivy League college, Columbia University in New York. Now, when I came home from uh, college, coming back to this community, um, things were different in terms of what was celebrated. In academia and corporate America, achievement is the currency. Like, that's what you get attention for. In the neighborhood, what you get attention for is money and swag. Swag
Mm,
being defined by how close you can be to street culture without actually going to jail or getting killed. So when you come back from, the I won't say the height of academia, but just when you come from a place where what you know and how well you've applied that, that's kind of what you were judged by. And when you come back to the neighborhood and people look at you as if that's nothing, like that holds no value or little value in comparison to some street stuff. I think in my early to mid 20s, I was a little confused. It's kind of a culture shock. Even though I'm from here, I spent time trying to get away, from the inner city stuff. And when I came back, I was a little confused as to, well, wait a minute, no one really cares about anything I've achieved. They don't care about my test scores. They don't care about my report card. Like they don't care about that. And I think being young and still trying to find my way, I think that those were some times. I think the '90s, I was very confused as to which way I wanted to go. Not that I wanted to do anything illegal, but you're wrestling with these two different personas. Like which size fits you best. And through my writing career, um, I kind of found my footing and just have never looked back since then.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. Um, there's a little bit of feedback that's happening.
Oh,
And so, yeah, that must have been tough, especially because you were striving to be you were striving to be the best. And so based on that, you weren't able to showcase that or highlight that. So that must have been very tough.
it was. You almost have to kind of, to use some slang. It's like you have to tuck your chain. It's like what you had been used to shining at before. You got to tuck that. That doesn't play back home. And you're like, man, I spent 8 years cultivating, like working hard, doing things that I'm proud of, developing experiences and skills that I look forward to showcasing. But again, you come back home, no one cares.
Well, um, so did it take you some time to actually get out of that or realize that um, I do have something to accomplish,
Yeah.
or I do have something to bring to the world, to the table. I have accomplished a lot, and if so, how long did it take you, or did it take someone to get you out of that? How did you overcome it?
Okay. So this is a this would be a kind of a nice segue, a natural segue. So yes, it took me a while. I would say the better part of a decade, if I'm being honest, for me to really kind of like shirk that off. But what really kind of drove it home, very good friend of mine, um, who is a blue collar guy, not someone, wasn't one much for school and things like that, but it's been like, that's my foxhole buddy. You know what I mean? Like your ride or
Mhm.
die. It's my OG. He actually, you could call it kidnapped. He pretended he's a plumber by trade, so he wanted me. He told me he wanted to take me on an assignment out of town. I said, no problem, I got you. So we get to the location, and he locks the doors, and he proceeds to basically curse me out for an hour and some change, telling me to get my stuff together. And I was so grateful, and I was mad at the time, And he did that. This is before cell phones, before Ubers. Like I was stuck. I had to take it. That's why he took me out of town. He's like, you're so angry. You would have just, if I told you this at home, you just would have stormed out. But now you can walk home, an hour and a half if you want to, but you're gonna have to hear this. So he's been one of my lifelong friends, and recently I was able to present him with his own custom action figure because I told him, you know what, you're one of my heroes, and he remains so to this day.
Okay, great. So I am going to show the video because
Okay.
I thought it was great. So let me uh, pull it up.
What the? Ah! 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 Oh, no! No, this is unreal. I have a doll. What the? Ah!
I had to show it twice. um, and I know you posted it on your LinkedIn page,
Yeah.
and it came up, and I was like, wow, that is such a great idea. Um, so, and I know you called him your hero, and what made you decide to go to that length to create that action figure for him?
Well, during the pandemic, when it first hit and we had to all kind of socially distance and, we really couldn't reach out and touch each other anymore like we used to, I had an idea to make custom action figures for, my close friends. I couldn't see them as much as often, but I wanted them to know that I still value them and still miss them. So initially, it was for guys that played basketball. I played basketball in high school and a little bit in college, and because sports figures are easy to find and modify. But then I was, like I talked about with my Smile for You Wish, I didn't want to just limit, my these gifts to people who played sports. 'Cause I think we as Black men are so much more. This friend being one of them. So I just kept looking for a plumber figure, and I was able to find someone, a design studio that could modify it. Add the dreads, the glasses, the beard, things like that. And it took about 18 months, but I was able to give it to him. Let's say a few weeks ago, and his reaction, it made all that wait, it made it worthwhile.
Yeah, I thought it was great because, and I know he didn't really say a lot afterwards, but what was his feedback to you when he actually received the doll?
Oh, I was instructed to turn the camera off so he could let those tears out. That's
Okay.
why it's a short video.
Okay. Okay.
He was moved. I mean, he was, because again, not to keep pounding this point home, but regular Black men just aren't celebrated. Like, we're not even really seen in society. So just for someone of that profession, of that walk of life, he was very touched that someone even saw him in that way. Because again, brothers who work blue collar jobs and people who aren't necessarily the flashiest, we just don't get a lot of shine, a lot of attention in general in the community and by the community. So he was just very happy, and I tell him all the time, like, you're my hero. Now, again, I have professional athlete friends, I have friends who work on Wall Street, I have six-figure friends, but like I said in that story just a little while ago, that was the person during my slide. He was the one who made sure I was all right. He was the one who cared enough to drag me out of town and tell me about myself so that I could turn things around and get back. That's a hero in my book, you know,
Right.
not
Right.
necessarily someone like where you live or what you drive, but that's a hero. Your character makes you a hero to me. And, um, I was just
Right.
very happy to do that for him.
Especially since, um, as a guy, he spends most of the time under the sink or,
Yep.
doing the dirty work. He doesn't necessarily, in his profession, get to see people a lot.
Exactly.
You'll see his initial, oh, no, introduce himself, what he does, and then they'll say, and then his next, okay, where's the problem? And
Right.
then for the most part, you won't even see him or really interact with him until he's done, and then he gets the invoice, and then he's on his way. But
You
the fact that he was able to, in what you said earlier, be human and be also seen as human, because you had to be able to receive what he was telling you as well.
Exactly. And I've known him since I was 11 years old and he was 13. So it's like, I knew it came from a trusted source. You know what I mean? He's someone who's been around that long. He had earned enough equity in my
Mhm.
book to
Mhm.
shoot me straight, so to speak. You know what I mean? And
Right.
like you said, normally his daily job when he goes to perform a service, after they describe what they need done, he's expected to just get right to it. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
always about your utility as Black men. That's one thing that really, really um, that I see a lot is that we basically get our value is attached to our utility. What can
Mhm.
you do? Can you provide? Can you protect? I'm not saying that we shouldn't do those things, but that's the only thing we get measured by.
Right.
Not how's your day? You all right, bro? You know, like seriously, like, and so I've cultivated since the pandemic. I've made sure that since now that we're coming out of it, that I call my brothers every day, see how they're doing. You know, hey, you know, do you want to go for a walk? You know what I mean? Like just there's
Right.
things that you wouldn't even just conversations. And
Right.
there's a
Right.
whole part of our lives that as Black men that no one even sees,
Right.
even though it may be taking place right in front of your eyes. Like no one even sees it. You know what I mean? Like I had a
Mhm.
brother call me the other day. He's like, "Hey man, you free? Let's go for a walk in the park." So we went for the walk, and he was just talking about the difficulties of potty training his daughter.
Mm.
Now, if you saw two Black men walking in the park, you know, with hoodies on, that's probably the last thing that would cross your mind that we'd be talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? But
Right.
that's what happens every
That's real.
day.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
out here. We just have these things in our minds, you know, that we don't we you know what's important to us and who we are. Um, it's just not recognized often enough, in my opinion.
Right. Right. And so, and thank you for that. What has been what has been the actually the overall acceptance of the book?
Very much, very well. It's been very well received. I was hoping that it would be, and I can honestly say that it has exceeded my expectations. You know, there's been offers for speaking engagements, gallery showings of the photos inside the book, um, community discussions and moderated discussions. It's grown so much so fast. It hasn't really been. It's been a little over 2 months that this was published, and it's gained a lot of traction. I wanted to continue to grow. One unexpected lane that opened up for me was I've been contacted by people in the diversity and inclusion space to possibly have the book as a tool for unconscious bias training in the
Wow.
workplace, which and that would be great. Like that, I didn't think of that
Hmm.
when I published it, but that would be a great space to get into. So I've had some talks around that and what that looks like and where the need is. But it's just been it's been a great positive thing, and this has been the most meaningful project that I've worked on.
Great. Great. And I guess that you did say what's next. So is that what's next, or there's some other things that you are working on?
Well, for me, I wanted the whole mission to humanize Black men. You know, one of my bigger goals is to I've been developing both a feature film and then also a TV series. Um, but it heavily both of those projects are heavily geared towards humanizing Black men as well. But then I realized I almost had to kind of preheat the oven almost, because if audiences are not used to seeing this kind of content, then they're not going to respond to those larger projects. So Smile for We is kind of like, I don't want to say a canary in the coal mine, but it's very much like, okay, let me get you leaning in this direction. Then hopefully, once I've got you accepting the fact that Black men can be human and in fact are human and have always been human, now you can get some more content coming down the pike that you can respond to favorably as well.
Okay, yeah, nice. The nice little appetizer that can turn into the main course.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Um, yeah, because I don't know if you can see the book if you have a copy. I mean, I have my copy right here, but it's kind of hard to see. But if you
I
have
gotta
one
send
with
you a
you.
shirt too, Keith. I gotta send
Oh,
you a shirt.
oh, okay. Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
awesome.
You got that coming this week.
I look forward to that. And do you have a copy of the book there that you could put on the screen,
I do. It's not. Let me see. I don't know if I
it
have
may
one.
be hard to see, but and I'll post it on the page too. But I didn't know if you had one there.
Um, if I can step away and grab it if you want me to, it's like just out of reach, of camera
Yeah,
reach.
yeah, yeah. Step away because
Okay,
I'd like people to see it
give me
if they
one
can.
second. Here we go.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And I love the picture when I opened it because I think um, it's like you said, it's so much. There's so much joy just captured in that photo. It's a young man. And clearly, I mean, what's also cool is that what you didn't use. It's kind of like a pink background. It's not a
Yeah.
blue background or colors that are more. I would say just it's a different color, and I'm sure you that was by design.
Yes.
That's because pink is a calming color, and so yeah,
It was.
I thought it was
Yep.
great.
It's a soothing color. It pops. It stands out against the brown of his skin. It was just a lot of aesthetic reasons. It's kind of a almost like a fashion or a design. You know what I mean? I want to really accentuate the subject matter. So,
Mm.
you know, like you said, it being a calming color, and it also, when it is on the shelves, it stands out. That color
Mm.
really jumps out at you, and it makes you look at it. So,
Right.
although even the size of the book, I wanted to fit into your hand and be portable. So all those decisions were kind of made with the viewer in mind.
So I know I didn't ask you this, and it would be hard to, and you probably don't want to answer, but if you did you actually have a favorite photo from the book? But when I
Yes,
looked through
I
it
do.
again,
I do.
oh, you do have one,
I
okay,
do. You know what? It's so funny that you mentioned it. I do have one, and it was funny because it was one of the guys that I don't know,
okay,
and it happened during my first shoot. So my first shoot was a good friend of mine. It's like my little brother. We were downtown Columbus in an alley, against a brick wall, trying some different things out, and an unsheltered brother walked up to me. I was like, "What are you doing?" Now, again, to being the location, given the fact that we already talked about how we internalize some of these negative stereotypes,
mhm,
I expected the worst. I'm sure he had some assumptions about me. I had some assumptions about him. So it's like in a 30-second, window, everything flipped because I explained to him what the project was and what we were doing. He told me he was proud of me and he couldn't wait to see it. And I said, "Hey, you know what? That's it. Sit down right here. You have to be a part of this. Like, just I'll shoot you right now."
okay.
And that is by far my favorite picture in the book, because of the organic way in which it happened, and because of the exchange of humanity that he and I shared in that moment.
Oh, great.
Here I
Yeah,
was thinking that he
the
meant
one
me
I
harm.
liked. Yeah, the one I liked was the guy that actually had a chipped tooth.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
that's him, Roberto. Yep,
oh, that was him. Okay,
that's
yeah,
him. That's him. Yeah,
and because he had, I mean, because he had a flaw. He didn't have perfect teeth, and so usually by automatic, they're you're not going to get them to smile because then it already it reveals something about the person before you even get to know them.
right.
As whereby, oh, okay,
To
because
me, he was perfectly imperfect.
yeah,
It was great. Like that. If I ever had any doubts, and I think every artist, when you're embarking on a new project, you wonder, is anyone going to care? Is this thing going to take off? Like, why am I doing this? If I had any doubts, they disappeared the moment I met that brother.
mm.
And it was like, he was just like, it was perfect. And you know, that was by far my favorite picture and my favorite shoot because
and and what did he think when you gave him? I'm sure you gave him one, or he saw
well,
the finished product.
again, the brother lived in a shelter and I've been trying to find him.
Oh, you haven't found him.
I have not found him. He, I took him to, after the shoot, I took him to an ATM, got some money out for him, said, "Hey man, dinner's on me." You know what I mean? And the shelter's not too far away from where I live. So I've been driving around there ever since. Now, again, the good news is maybe he's relocated. Maybe he's found you know, some stability that he didn't have at that time. That's where my mind would like to go. Uh, that since he's no longer at that shelter, doesn't appear to be at that shelter, maybe
Mm.
things turned around for him. Um, but I've tried to find him. I've tried to find him ever since, and haven't been able to.
Wow, that's amazing.
But I won't forget him though.
Right,
That
right, right. I mean, with that, I would end on that, but I, I always like to end because you talked about some of the things that you do is that you reach out to people and you ask them how they're doing. So I always like to end the show with one, how are you doing? How do you feel now? How do you feel right now as a Black man?
I feel better than I did when I started the project, because in a selfish sense, this was therapy for me. I was starting to feel between the police brutality images that we see. I mean, these videos, they still keep coming. I mean, if you watch the news or read the news, they happen literally every week. Some get more media exposure than others. Some go viral, some don't. But this thing is happening so much. So I was kind of sliding into uh, a dark place for a little bit. But this, connecting with my friends and people like yourself, I want to give you some flowers for you having me on this show and allowing me to express my humanity, right? Like I'm trying to capture other people's humanity, but people like yourself, you're giving me platforms to express my humanity as a creator. So, that makes me feel very good. And I can honestly say that I'm doing better.
Well, that's great. I'm glad that you are feeling better. And I just want to, because it takes a lot of courage to also just approach folks, and even with a creative project such as that. I know you probably knew some of the people, but even the ones you didn't know, and you're like, "Hey, I want you to smile." They're like, "Who are you?" you know.
Right, right.
Um, and the fact that you're trying to change the paradigm of what we are as who we are as men and how we're viewed as men. So I really appreciate one coming on today. Um, you know, if you haven't heard about this book, pick up the Smile for We. And I think what's the name of the website so people can go and check it out. Get a T-shirt, but it
Yeah.
just support um, the change that's trying to be made. So what's that
It's
website?
smileforwe.com.
Smileforwe.com. Great.
Yes, sir.
Well, Damon, just thank you, and be sure to hold on for a few minutes, and we'll chat afterwards.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks. So that was a great show, because one thing I want you to take from this is that one, it takes action to present something to the world that you want, that may not necessarily get accolades right away, but it can create a movement. And I'm going to challenge not just black men and black men specifically, but just people in general to smile or present yourself in the best way possible, despite all the challenges that you may be going through, um, and all the difficulties, or how people may not view you the way you want to be viewed. But I think if you can smile or you can present the energy that you want to give back, you will receive that in return. So um, I'm just glad I was here today, and I thank Damon Mosley for being on the show tonight. And hope to talk to you soon. And this is Keith Dent from Black Men Speak podcast. If you want to catch a show, you can, or a previous episode, you can go wherever you find your favorite podcast, and just check out, because there's been some great guests that are really doing some great things. So, peace.